Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, April 20th. This is Gina McGuire. Over the last 30 days, we've seen precipitation mainly target the northern half of the Great Basin. However, even over parts of southern Utah into the Arizona Strip and southern Nevada, we've seen lighter amounts of rainfall. Looking at how this relates to normal for the time of year, well below normal precipitation over the southern portion of the Great Basin and below normal really across much of Utah. However, over the Sierra into western and northern Nevada and over eastern Idaho and Wyoming, well above normal precipitation for the time of year. We've seen this wetter pattern really be affecting the Great Basin over the last 6 weeks or so. Looking at the new snowfall over the last 72 hours, we do have a storm system moving through the Great Basin, and it did bring some snowfall, especially to the higher terrain of central Nevada, and also this morning to the central mountains of Utah and up into the Uintas, with some lighter spattering amounts across Idaho and Wyoming. Still looking at good snow depth across the central Idaho mountains into Wyoming, with snow depth near or just above normal. And across the Sierra and over the higher terrain of Utah, we're still looking at snowpack about 50 to 60% of normal. The satellite loop from this morning shows that area of low pressure tracking across the Great Basin, and is still bringing showers this morning to really most of Utah, especially in the higher terrain. We do have a ridge of high pressure that is now moving in along the west coast, and this will move across the Great Basin, bringing warmer and drier conditions for much of the weekend. Now looking at the weather pattern for later this afternoon, you can see that area of low pressure by later today moves into the central Rockies, with the ridge of high pressure moving in over much of the western half of the Great Basin. So temperatures will warm significantly today over the western and northern areas with much drier conditions, and temperatures will increase to near to just above normal. Looking at the dispersion today, we will see dispersion start to decrease over the far western areas of the Great Basin as that ridge moves in, and over the far eastern areas as that area of low pressure exits. However, in between we will have some gusty northwest winds, and that will keep good dispersion over much of the Great Basin. We can see those winds in the image on the left, gusty northwest winds, anywhere between about 30 and 40 miles per hour, especially over the eastern half of Nevada, into Utah and the Arizona Strip, and over parts of Idaho and Wyoming. Mixing heights remain relatively high underneath where those areas of winds are strongest, and quite a bit lower over the Sierra into western Nevada. As we move into Saturday, the ridge flattens as it moves eastward across the area. However, warm and dry conditions are expected region-wide. Therefore, dispersion will be on the decrease, especially across Nevada and into Utah. Looking at the transport winds, you can see again those underneath that ridge of high pressure winds fairly light across much of the area. We still do have some breezy westerly winds across parts of Idaho near the northern portion of that ridge as another system starts to move in quickly across the northern areas of the Great Basin. However, wind gusts will generally be in the 20s. Mixing heights remain relatively high over northern and far eastern areas and lower as you track further west. On Sunday, that weak area of low pressure is pretty quick moving and will be moving across northern areas of the Great Basin, mainly later in the day on Sunday and into Sunday night and Monday. This will bring some showers and possible thunderstorms across northern Nevada and up into Idaho and eventually into northern Utah. We did actually see some thunderstorms over the last 24 hours across parts of Nevada and Utah with that last area of low pressure that's been moving through yesterday and today. So we are getting into that season where we will start seeing more lightning strikes associated with our precipitation. This will be a warmer storm with higher snow levels. Dispersion will remain poor, especially across Idaho into western Nevada and Utah on Sunday. Winds very light across the area, even with that area of low pressure moving in. It's mainly a higher area of low pressure, so at the surface winds will be relatively light. Mixing heights will be generally moderate to high region-wide. As we look at the forecast clearing index for Utah, with those gustier winds still remaining today, we do have higher clearing indices really across the state with a little bit lower clearing indices, but still moderate to high even over the higher terrain. As we move through Saturday and Sunday and those winds start to decrease, we will see those clearing indices gradually go down as well. Looking at the overall forecast amount of precipitation over the next few days, this area of precipitation over Utah is mainly accounting for what we are seeing today in the way of showers with that exiting area of low pressure. And then the precipitation further north across Idaho into northern Nevada is the system that we will see moving through later in the day on Sunday and into Monday. As we go into next week, that system that moves through later on Sunday into Monday will be passing by to the east by later on Monday afternoon and evening, and this will still keep some showers through the day on Monday as we get into the evening hours over parts of western Wyoming, but most of the rest of the geographic area will be drying as we move through the day. Also, temperatures will remain warm next week, with highs 5 to 10 degrees above normal across the geographic area. Ventilation indices will remain rather high, especially as we move through the day on Monday, but will be decreasing in the north and west. As we go into Tuesday, that ridge of high pressure continues to slide to the east with still warm and dry conditions. We may see some cloud cover moving into western areas out ahead of an area of low pressure that's well off the west coast, but no precipitation is expected on Tuesday. Dispersion also will be on the decrease, as under that ridge of high pressure, winds will remain relatively light. On Wednesday, we may see a little bit more cloud cover across the area, but right now it doesn't look like great chances for precipitation, and if we do see anything, it would be definitely on the lighter side, with temperatures remaining warm. Dispersion will remain poor over much of Nevada into Idaho and western Utah, and maybe a little bit higher over southern and eastern areas. On Thursday, still under the influence of that ridge of high pressure, with this area of low pressure still remaining off the west coast, therefore light winds, warm temperatures, dry conditions, and poor dispersion continues. Looking at the precipitation accumulation over the period from Monday morning through Wednesday morning, again, any of this precipitation up across Idaho and Wyoming is what will be occurring on Monday, with drier conditions expected through midweek. Looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook, we're finally starting to see a change with a return to warmer conditions and above normal temperatures into late April and the early part of May, and also seeing that return of drier conditions, especially over the western half of the Great Basin. That concludes our briefing for today. Check back on Monday for the latest updates.